Pause for a moment. Not with your phone, with your chest. If a name quietly surfaced while you were scrolling, this is for you. You don't miss them the way you think you do. You miss who you were when you felt chosen, when your nervous system finally rested, when love didn't feel like something you had to earn. And the strange part is this: they feel that absence too. Not because you vanished, but because something real stopped reaching for behind distance doesn't weaken emotional bonds. It strips away the noise and leaves only what was real behind. And sometimes the moment you stop trying to hold on is the moment everything begins to shift. You've probably been told to ignore them, to go silent as a tactic, to make them jealous, to play it cool, play it smart, play it strategic. But let me say this clearly. Longing doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from loss of emotional access. When someone moves on, especially into another relationship, people assume the story is finished. But real connection doesn't disappear just because life rearranges itself. It doesn't dissolve when circumstances change. It doesn't vanish because someone chose comfort over truth. It waits. And what pulls someone back isn't chasing, convincing, or proving your value. It's something far quieter, far more unsettling. It's what happens when you stop feeding the version of yourself that was trying to be chosen and return to the version of you that was grounded, whole, and self-aligned. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself, someone else begins to feel the weight of losing you, even if they're with someone else, even if they swear they've moved on, even if they never say a word. If you've ever wondered why silence suddenly feels different, why they start watching from a distance, why their certainty begins to crack, this is where it begins. When you stop bending to be understood, when you stop over-explaining your worth, when you stop shrinking to fit inside someone else's emotional limits. At first, nothing happens on the outside. No message, no apology, no sudden realization. But inside them, something shifts. They feel the absence of your energy. Not the version of you that waited for reassurance, but the version that was present, authentic, and emotionally alive. And that absence creates contrast. They begin to notice what feels different now. Conversations that don't land, laughter that feels thin, moments that should feel full but somehow don't. Not because the new person is wrong, but because what they had with you was real. And here's the part no one prepares you for. Regret doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with dramatic gestures or emotional confessions. It arrives quietly, as a whisper they can't silence, a feeling they can't shake, a knowing that settles in during still moments. I didn't value it until it was gone. They try to distract themselves. They try to stay busy. They tell themselves they made the right choice. But emotional truth doesn't disappear just because it's inconvenient. It waits for silence. And silence always comes. They feel it during songs that hit too close, memories that arrive uninvited, moments where they realize something essential is missing. And the more whole you become, the clearer that absence feels to them. Because this isn't about making someone come back. It's about returning to yourself. And when you do, you stop chasing and start becoming undeniable. That's when the weight lands. That's when distance does what effort never could. So if your chest feels heavy right now, if part of you is still waiting, still wondering, stay with me. Because the shift that changes everything doesn't happen out there. It begins inside you. You don't miss them the way you think you do. You miss who you were when you felt chosen, when you felt settled, seen, certain. And whether they admit it or not, they feel that absence too. Even now, especially now, because distance doesn't weaken emotional impact, it magnifies it. And sometimes, the moment you stop reaching is the moment everything quietly begins to change. Most content will tell you to ignore them, to manipulate the silence, to provoke jealousy and promise power, control, fast results. This isn't about that, because begging never comes from games. It comes from losing emotional access. When someone moves on, even into another relationship, people assume the story is finished, as if what was real simply dissolves when circumstances shift. It doesn't. Emotional bonds don't disappear just because life moves forward. They go underground. They wait. What actually pulls someone back isn't chasing, convincing, or proving your worth. It's something far quieter, far rarer. It's the moment you stop feeding the version of yourself that was trying to be chosen and return to the version of you that was grounded, aligned, and emotionally unavailable to confusion. That's the inner shift that creates weight. Not because you did something to them, but because you stopped doing something to yourself. If you've ever wondered why silence suddenly feels different, why they start watching from a distance, why their certainty begins to crack, this is where it begins. There is a moment when the weight of loss finally reaches them. Choosing someone else does not erase what was real. It doesn't erase intimacy, connection, or the quiet understanding you shared, even if they deny it. Even if they insist they've moved on, that bond lingers, like a shadow they can't quite escape. Here's the truth most people miss. You don't create longing by chasing. You create it by becoming whole again, when you stop bending, stop compromising, stop overextending to meet expectations that cost you yourself. Something shifts. At first, nothing happens on the outside. No message, no reaction. But inside them, the contrast is undeniable. They feel the absence of your energy. Not the version of you that waited for reassurance, but the version that was self-respecting, emotionally anchored, and real. That's when regret begins to stir. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, persistent thought they can't silence. I didn't value it until it wasn't there. The more they try to distract themselves, the louder that truth becomes, because emotional truth doesn't care about timing or convenience. It only responds to alignment. And that's why distance and self-restoration are so powerful. You're not trying to make them come back. You're reclaiming your life, and in that reclaiming, they feel the gravity of the choice they made without you, even in someone else's arms. When you step back, something unexpected happens. They don't immediately realize they made a mistake. It's subtler than that. A quiet emptiness grows. A sense that something essential is missing. The new relationship may look right. It may feel safe. It may check all the boxes they thought mattered. But it doesn't resonate. It doesn't feel familiar. It doesn't feel deep. It doesn't feel alive in the same way. And that's where the pull begins. Not because you did anything, but because they're forced to confront the emotional gap between who they are now and who they were when they had access to your authenticity. They feel it in small moments. A song, a memory, a laugh that suddenly reminds them of what they walked away from. These moments become mirrors. They don't create pain. They reveal truth. And that discomfort grows, not as anger, but as longing, not as need, but as awareness. This pull cannot be forced. It can only unfold. Because no one can replicate emotional resonance that was real. Then comes the turning point. Not a confession, not a message. Just a quiet moment when reality settles in. They notice the things that were effortless with you. The understanding, the emotional rhythm, the way you didn't need to explain yourself to be understood. And suddenly, the absence feels heavy. They begin comparing, not consciously, but emotionally. What they have now may offer routine or stability, but it lacks depth, it lacks truth. And that contrast awakens something they buried. Regret. They may deny it. They may distract themselves. They may convince themselves they're fine. But the hollow moments keep returning. A conversation that falls flat, a connection that feels thin. This isn't manipulation. This is consequence. As time passes, the reality they tried to outrun catches up. They start recognizing what can't be replaced. The ease, the resonance, the feeling of being fully seen. Regret stops being an idea. It becomes a physical ache. They realize leaving wasn't just losing you, it was losing alignment with their own truth. Even if they never come back, they are changed. Your presence taught them something they can't unlearn. That authenticity matters, that depth is rare, and that ignoring intuition always has a cost. Then comes the quiet realization, not spoken, not admitted, felt in stillness, in silence. They feel your absence, the connection they walked away from, the version of themselves that felt most alive with you, and the truth are lost. It wasn't just the relationship they lost. It was their courage, their integrity, their willingness to honor what was real. They may never return, they may never say it out loud, but inside they know. And that's why your silence, your self-respect, your alignment is more powerful than any chase ever could be. If your chest feels heavy right now, let this settle. You were never too much, never too sensitive, never wrong for trusting what you felt. You simply saw a truth they weren't ready to face. That's not failure, that's clarity. Some love lessons aren't about who stays, they're about what you awaken in someone else. They may never return, but you will always be the mirror that reflected truth. Release the weight of waiting. Stop measuring your worth by someone else's readiness. Stop chasing what was never yours to control. Your intuition guided you, your alignment protected you, and your peace is no longer negotiable. Let them live with the consequences of their choices. You move forward, stronger, clearer, and finally, at home within yourself. If this spoke to you, comment, "I trust my intuition." Let it anchor you. So here is the truth you need to take with you. You don't need to chase what was never meant to be forced. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who couldn't hold it. And you don't need closure from the person who taught you how to choose yourself. What mattered was never whether they came back. What mattered was the moment you stopped abandoning yourself to keep them. If they feel the weight of losing you, let it be theirs to carry. That weight was created by their choices, not your silence. Your silence isn't punishment, it's alignment. You were never too much. You were never wrong for feeling deeply. You were never mistaken for trusting what your intuition showed you. You simply saw a truth they weren't ready to face. And now, your only responsibility is this: protect your peace. Honor your growth. Stay aligned with the version of you that no longer begs to be chosen. Some connections don't return, they transform you instead, and that transformation is the real ending. If this spoke to your heart, comment, "I trust my intuition." Let it anchor you when doubt tries to return. Like this video if you're choosing self-respect over confusion. Subscribe if you're ready for content that honors emotional truth, intuition, and real healing. Because the next chapter of your life doesn't begin when someone comes back. It begins when you stop waiting.